Welcome back to CAS 133 Basic Computer Skills, Columbia Gorge Community College, The Dalles, Oregon. And we're going to be talking again Chapter 3. And in this video, we're going to discuss two things. We're going to talk about extra credit and the application project. So we're going to go back to right where we left off. We had just finished up with this summary of the learning project. The learning project should have everything supplied to you as much as humanly as possible. I've given you the images, the student file, data files are there. If the template went wonky, I tried to give it to you or supply an option one. Picture's gone, I gave you an alternate one. So everything should be in Moodle for the learning project. For some of the others, that's not going to be quite the case. So let's start walking our way through those and talking about them. We're not going to do anything with this page. Or this one. When we get over to here in the labs, down here at the bottom, you can do that for extra credit. You get one extra credit project per section. In other words, for Word, there's going to be one extra credit done. You can do it with Chapter 1, you can do it with Chapter 2, you can do it with Chapter 3, but you only get to do one Word project for credit. So you can choose this one, following the directions here. Now, if the templates are gone on this, you're going to have to sort those out and find those yourself. I think most of the pictures are probably going to be in the student data file, so that shouldn't be a huge issue. It does give you a picture to look at and match. So again, you can say, oh, I've got kind of that basic kind of subtle green and this picture, and this is purple and green, and oh, this is highlighted. And so you can kind of go through and look at that and get it set up. Non-serif font. By the way, I said I'd show you a serif font. Over here is a serif font. Notice it, if I can bring this down a little bit. Maybe I can't. We'll see. Notice it how it has the little extras added at the bottom of the A, and the little thing at the top of the D, and the T has the little curl on it. That is a serif font. Those are those little extra pieces. This is not a serif font. Notice if you look at a T over here, if I can find one, it just comes down straight. It doesn't have the little curve. It doesn't have those extra parts and pieces that we're seeing in this text type of font. So if you have to come up with your own font, you need to make sure that you have serif fonts for serif font items and non-serif fonts for non-serif font items. You can do the lab too. That's an option as well. It's one or the other. Please make sure you're clear on that. And you'll be working on this one. You can do lab 3. Now each one of them does get a little harder as you go, so there is a third one that's in the lab, but make sure it's a lab 1. And those can be used for extra credit, so you can complete one of those. Or you can not this week and move on and do one another week. You get to do one from Word of the 3 chapters. You can do one from PowerPoint of the 2 chapters, one from Excel for the 2 chapters, or the Access one. So for the whole term, you get to do 2 of them you pick. So if you do a Word and a PowerPoint, you're done. Or if you do a PowerPoint and an Excel, you're done. Most people avoid the Access one. It's a lot harder. There's a hint. When you get to the application project, now this is the 50-point required project you must do. If you do not have one of these completed and do not have it completed with at least a C, you are in danger of failing the class. At that point, depending on how you've done with everything else, etc., I have the option of giving you a D or an F. A D is no credit in any of the CAS classes. So, you don't really want to go there. I don't want to have to make that decision. You don't want to have me make that decision. So just make sure you always have one of these that's a passing score. Passing is 35 out of 50 points. So now what do I have to do with it? Well, you have 3 of them. You have this choice, you have this choice, and you have this choice. Now this one is kind of like a personal type thing, like you're doing a club flyer. The second one is always kind of a professional type thing. And then the third one is designed as kind of a research and collaboration one. But because we're an online class and we're not collaborating, you're going to have to do it on your own. This is the hardest one. So if you like a challenge and you like to take on the toughest of the tough, that's where you want to go. If you don't like one of these, don't do it. Do the other one. On Excel, there's one that's kind of a personal one where you have to actually go in and give out your finances, your real finances, not fake ones. And some people aren't comfortable doing that, even though I'm the only one that's going to see it. And I'm looking for technical issues, not how much money you make, because I really could care less. So the bottom line, though, is if you're not comfortable using that one, don't use it. Do the other one, because you always have that choice. Don't fake it, because if I catch you faking it, I fail it. That simple. So then what do you want to do? Well, the one thing you may want to do is come over here and download this application project optional page note. That is, like it says, optional, but what I find a lot of times students forget to do is all the steps. And so that gives you a place to take some notes and make sure. So I'm now, as the student, getting ready to do this. I'm going to read through carefully. I am going to take some notes, or I'm going to go wild with the pen and mark it. So as the secretary of your school's photography club, you are responsible for creating and distributing flyers announcing the club. The flyer should contain 2 digital pictures appropriately resized. Yep, I'll be looking for those. The data files for the students contain 2 pictures called Photography 1 and Photography 2, or you can use your own digital pictures if they're appropriate for the topic of the flyer. So that's your choice, but I will be looking for 2 pictures. The flyer should contain the headline, Photography Club, so that's what I'm going to obviously be looking for, so you're going to want to make sure you're marking that or putting it in your notes. It needs a signature line, and the signature line needs to say questions, call Emily at. If that's not there, that's graded down. The body copy should include the following. Do you love photography? This is the club for you. All skill levels are welcome. Meetings are Tuesday at 5 o'clock in the Student Center, room 232. Bring your camera. We look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. All those words need to be there. They need to be spelled right. They need to have the correct capitals. They need to have the right question marks and periods, and they need to be in any order you think they need to be to make that work. So you have that creative option. Then it says, use the concepts and techniques presented in this chapter to create and format this flyer. So what are some of the things I'll be looking at? Okay, you got 2 pictures. Did you just throw them on there, or did you add a border? Did you frame them? Did you add some sort of picture effects like we learned? Did you tip them, turn them, center them? What did you do? Did you put a border around it? We learned how to. You might as well apply it. Did you use any word art? Maybe for the title, for something else. Did you center any text? Did you change sizes of any text? Did you color any text? Did you use a bulleted list? The list goes on of those features that you learned. I will be looking for those types of things each time we do a project. A plain Jane thing like 2 pictures blopped on, there's the stuff, there it is, done, here. Not going to be an A. Probably not going to be a B. You might pull a C. Maybe. This is your chance to shine and show what you learned. You need to apply it. Okay? So that's the first thing. Obviously, check for spelling and grammar is another thing. And then submit the assignment and the answers to the critical questions in the format specified by your instructor. So here's the format. Save, upload to Moodle. Simple. But you're not done. You still have this second section for each one of these to do, and it is a separate second document. Now in Word, that means 2 Word documents. When we get to PowerPoint, that means it'll be a PowerPoint and a Word document, an Excel and a Word document. So you're going to do a Word document every time. So you made several decisions while creating the flyer in this assignment. Where to place text, how to format the text, font size, paragraph alignment, bulleted paragraphs, underlines, italics, bold, color, etc. Which graphics to use, where to position the graphics, how to format the graphics, which page enhancements to add, border, spacing, etc. What was the rationale behind each of these decisions? And when you proofread the document, what further revisions did you make and why? And how would you recommend distributing the flyer? So now that you know this, again, this is probably good to have on your note paper. Let's go look at what that could mean. All right. Oops, one thing I forgot to tell you about before we go any further. Back to that document properties. You did not complete that on that Word project yet that you just did right here. So we need to complete that and make sure that's on it before we upload it, although you can upload a second time. So on WD 44 and 45, it shows you how to do that. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to open one of these. This is our completed project. Isn't it beautiful? Pretend it is. I'm going to go to File here. Oops, I guess I have to have saved it first. So let's do that first. Save as. We'll call it Sample. There. Now that I've saved it the first time, it's going to allow me to play with the document properties. So when I bring that up, I need to add a title. That means I type it in here. It shows an author. This is not my name. I'm on a computer that's been named DEPD. You are using the school lab one. It may say, you know, CGCC lab. You're using your parents' computer. It may say Joe Smith or whatever their name is. You've borrowed a friend's computer, whatever. You cannot change this. This will stay. You can change this, and I expect you to. You can also add tags. Those tags usually are things that you can search for. Means if you've lost the flyer, you can't remember what you called it, you can kind of pick the topic and search and see if it can find it. It's really handy to have those in there, so you can add those as well. Once you've got that done, you'll notice that there are some other things you can do with this. And most of those are just contact things, so those stay, but you can put your name in. And I do expect to see your name. I do expect to see a club name or a flyer name. So like if I was doing the hot air balloon ride one, I would have not named it that. And then, of course, I need to do the save again, because if I don't save, that's not there. You can up and down some of those types of things so you can get things out of the way if you want to. But this should be saved into the project and would save there. Now, if you just closed that before you did it and you didn't actually do that, you're going to want to make sure that you've taken care of it. You can also open this, inspect document, check accessibility, check compatibility. So there's some other things that you can do in here and play with, but none of those are required, and none of those are things that I'm going to see. When I grade, I'm going to look right here, and if that's not there, that's an immediate 4 points off. Okay, so now that I've done that, now I'm ready to look at the application directions, so let's get those pulled open. There's some frequently asked questions as well as the directions, so let's start with the directions. It's going to take it a second to pull up here. But basically, it'll come up as a document in the second center, or at least it should. It'll give us a chance to look at all the directions for the application project. And if it doesn't pull, I'm going to have to update that. There it comes. Notice you have a save key right here, so you can actually go ahead and save that document. Keep it on your desktop or on your flash drive so you have it permanently and you don't have to wait for it to open this time each time. So what are the directions? First, the project is to be done after you've done the learning project. And if on Wednesday you turn the learning project in by then and you have me look at it, you may want to wait till Thursday morning and start this then, so you know that there wasn't a horrendous disaster that you need to deal with first. Minor things are a different matter. You want to go to consider this your turn. We did that. Consider this your turn. You will see that on each one of those. Make sure you find that. Under the heading, you'll find the 3 projects. I've already introduced that. One's personal, one's professional. The other one's a research and collaboration. You're to follow the directions provided exactly. So like I said, I went through and I marked all those parts and pieces, or you may want to use the record-keeping document. So the first one you'll go through, it's worth 30 points. If you don't do the document properties, as we've talked about, it's worth 4 points off right off the top before I start looking at any other problems with it. And then you'll do the part 2 part. That's what we're up to now to discuss. So what do you need to do with that thing? Well, you need to answer those questions that we just read. They need to be in standard English. They need to be in a Word document. They need to have capitals and periods. They need to be in correct sentences. They need to have correct grammar, all those basics college writing skills. And then you can upload it into Moodle along with the actual project part of it, the flyer. Now, how much space do you have to use? Well, there's a couple of things. First thing is you have to type the answers and the questions both, and I'm going to show you a sample. You need to have at least a 200-word reply, and that does include the questions. And this part is worth 20 points. You cannot pass the project and not turn this in. So let's see a sample of a good and a bad, because they both happen. And there is a desktop out here, I promise you, someplace. So here's a good one. Those are sandhill cranes, by the way. So, no, this is the poor one. Okay, so this is the poor one. Somebody picked this out and they said, I picked some of the pictures and they gave me in the files. I liked the colors I chose and I chose the best ones for this flyer. I picked a font I liked and I made it a good size. Then I put in the pictures and decided they looked okay. I didn't change anything with proofreading. I liked it the way it was and left it. You can pass them out at the school. That's worth about 5 of the 20 points. That is almost useless. Good, liked, chose, best, not much information. 74 words out of the 200, you're lucky for the 5 points, to be honest. That is terrible. So, don't give me those. What should you do instead? Should look something like this one. It has the question. Now, you'll notice that first question, if I go back over to the book, was kind of a monster thing. So it said, you know, you made several decisions and on and on and on and on. So I shortened it a little bit. You made several decisions while creating the flyer in this assignment. What was the rationale behind each of these decisions? You may take that and borrow it for each one, because you don't need to necessarily say, how did you place the text? Where did you format the text? What was the font size? What was the paragraph size? Alignments, bulleted. Excuse me. In your question. But you do need to address the fact that you made several decisions while creating the flyer and what was the rationale. So this was my reply. Now, this is not the photo club flyer because I don't want to give you the answer. Not bright on my part. So this was for a flyer that I made for a horse riding club. When I was creating the flyer about the horse riding club, I wanted to use outdoor type colors, greens and browns. So there's a rationale for the colors, not just I picked ones I liked. But not too can't read tonight, sorry. Not too dark to keep the flyer bright and easy to read. I also wanted to use a non-serif type of font. It's cleaner and easier to read. I also needed to make the main text as large as possible so it can be read from some distance. Bulleted lists are easier to read, so I used them for the short parts about the club. So that would take you back possibly to the idea of listing some of these meetings are at on this time, bring your camera. So I might have done something similar to that with the horse riding club. I used bold on some of the words, but decided that underline or italics did not add to the flyer and made it harder to read. So there's my justification for not using those. I looked at the images in the student data files and picked 2 to use. Because remember, you were supposed to have 2. However, I also added a few extra clip art types of images. I used the Microsoft search feature and found a few to add to the upper edges of the flyer. I also applied some of the picture formatting to the clip art, and I also added a border to the pages like we did with the learning project. It framed the page and made the focus of the words more outstanding. And you'll notice I actually included part of that picture there where I'd softened the edges, so I showed what I did. You don't have to. I was playing with that, so I went ahead and did it. Notice I am putting some definite spacing in to make it easier to read. When these come in one massive, huge block of text, it's very hard for me to get through it all. And the harder you make it for me to read, the harder it is for me to give you a good grade. When you proofread the document, what further revisions did you make and why? So there's the second question written in there. When I proofread, I looked for typos and found a missing word and added it. I also added the border at this point as well. I decided it would help the clip art if I softened it some with the picture effects. How would you recommend distributing the flyer? Again, I repeat that question, then I answer the question. Since this club is set up for high school students, I would put the flyers at the high school, post them on the high school board. I'd also take them to any of the stores that tend to sell to the teen crowd. Also, the local student groups could help pass them out. Now, I'm thinking things like Boy Scouts, if there's Boys and Girls Clubs, church groups, those types of teen types of clubs and organizations, I could take flyers to. Now, I might want to explain that a little bit more thoroughly there, but that's kind of the idea. Now, the part I'm going to show you now, you don't have to do. This would be considered a done question and answer ready to upload. Do I have to go in here and do the document properties? No, it's a good habit to get into. Think about this at work. People say, well, why do you bother? One, you lost the file, you got to search for it. Having those tags sure helps. Having the property titled in there helps you find things. I made a file at work. I emailed it to Joe. Joe emailed it to Sam. Sam emailed it to Joseph. Joseph emailed it to Sally. It got to Martha. Martha's the boss. She says, who made this? And everybody goes, well, so-and-so sent it to me, so-and-so sent it to me, so-and-so sent it to me. We don't know who sent it. We don't know who did it. If I had put my document properties in there and taken ownership as author, Martha could have looked at that and go, oh, Mrs. Hughitt created that. I need to go ask her a question. Or this is a good idea. I want to implement this. Or whatever it is. It makes it so much easier on the paper trail if you've put your name in. So it's a good habit to get into, but I don't grade it on this. Now, when I was setting this up, I did some things just to help with this video. First thing is, those questions that I did totaled 43 words. You have to have a 250-word document, or 200-word document. So that basically means your questions take up about 50 words. So you're writing a basically 150-word response. That is not ridiculously long for a college response. In fact, it's fairly short. Just think of those 500-word ones you sometimes have to do. For me, I had 348 words in this demonstration one, which means I actually typed 305 words. That means you're required to have 200 words for it. When I look at it, basically, if you're not over that 200-word document, because I can see it right down here at the bottom, and I can pop it right up here, and I can see exactly how many words you have. If you've not crossed that 200-word mark, you're not getting credit. At least not full credit. Now, I've got this all done. I've written up my questions. I've written up my answers. I've got my flyer done. The most brilliant thing I can do is go back here one more time, and I can say, do I have the two pictures? Did I resize them? Do I have this title? Do I have this signature line? And did I make it as a signature line, or is it just thrown in as part of the bulleted list or something? Because that doesn't say, oh, that's not a signature line. Does it contain all this text? Did I get it all? Do I have all the words? Did I spell it right? Do I have red underlines for boo-boos? Did I use the concepts presented in this particular chapter? Whatever the chapter was teaching us, did I use that? Did I check for spelling and grammar? Capitals, periods, those types of things? Did I write the 3 questions? The decisions, the proofread, and how to distribute? Do I have those questions down, or did I just throw the text together? Did I space it out, putting spaces between things so it's easy to read? Do I have my required 200 words in question and answer format? And did I remember to set the document properties on this one before I was ready to save? And did I save after I set the document properties? Did I do that one last save? If I can answer yes to all those questions, then I'm ready to go over here to Moodle and upload it. Now there is a grading rubric that's also in here, so you can go through and look at basically how and what I'm looking at for grading. I do have the option to grant credit between those levels based on, it's not quite that bad, but it's not quite this good type of thing. Late work is obviously going to create a loss of points in addition to that. On this document, it's an automatic 4. You skip the document properties, that's an automatic, now 4 plus 4 is 8, and you've made some other mistakes and you're down to 10 or 12 or more off right there. If you don't have a 35 on this project, for at least one of the word application projects, you will be at risk of failing the class. This is a toolbar at the top, so I can use that to get back over to where I want to be. I want to get back down to this week. And I want to go ahead and do my upload right here. When I open it to do my upload, it will allow me to drag and drop 2 files right here. Now, if I've already put a file right there and I don't want it, I should be able to a little finagling here. Save the changes, then upload my other document. I could have done both of them at the same time, but I decided I wanted to edit it because that wasn't what I wanted. If I just click on it, it does allow me to delete that file. And then I can drag both of the files that I want to upload there. 2 files are there, hit save, and that would be my project file and my part 2 question file. Now I know these videos are a little longer and a little more laborious for both of us. However, this is it. The next time I expect you to be able to do all these items. I expect you to be able to find the learning project, which are the chapter pages. So as we head on into the following chapter, the next week, you would go to the next learning project. You would follow it through step by step. We'll get to the right one yet. Then you go on to the next one. You'd follow it through step by step. You would get back to the next set of consider this your turn. You would go through that same process again. You would also, if you were wanting to do extra credit and had not done it last week, you could look at these in the labs. We'll repeat that again as we move into the 3rd chapter. And then as we move into the PowerPoint, it will go exactly the same way. So this basically, even though I will introduce it for each one of these, the videos will become shorter, they will become briefer, and they will have less explanation of the step-by-step, but at least they will remind you what you need to do. If at any point you start getting feedback from me, they're saying you're not doing what you need to be doing, please come back to these videos in week 3 and take the time to go all the way through them again, because it is quicker to go through the video, even at 20, 30, 40 minutes, than it's going to be redoing the project 3 to 5 times to try to get a passing project. Again, if you have questions, please send the emails.